This is bonkers. Warcraft Direct just finished and they announced the 11.1 patch with the new dungeon, new zone, new raid, new season 2 dungeon pool, and one of the most awaited changes in WoW that people have been asking for years, and we're gonna cover all of them in this video because it is a good time to be a WoW player. To get it out of the way first, 1107 has an announcement date, which is December the 17th, aka next month, when the patch is going to launch with the Siren Isle and all the cool little activities that we're going to be doing then. You will know already about this, and I just want to go to the next topic, okay? But we do have a roadmap for the entire year, which we're going to put up on the screen throughout this video, so don't fret. But following this, we will most likely have the PTR for 11.1, which is undermined or in the undermine. We go into the undermine, which Marcelian and I have incorrectly foreshadowed that we're definitely not gonna go there because it has nothing to do with Xal'atath. But Ian Hazakostas has 100% assured us that there is a connection between the undermine and Xal'atath. We just don't know what it is yet, but that's fine. That aside, we're going into the Goblin Mecca, where you will basically play alongside the cartels. Now, I don't know exactly in what role these cartels will play. All of the Bilgewater, the Venture Co., the Steam Weedle, all of the Goblin cartels are going to be present there, and we're going to probably interact with them somehow, because of course you cannot have a Goblin patch without Gallywix being the boss of the new raid, which is the Liberation of Undermine. Now this is interesting because in terms of a raid, this is an 8-boss raid with Gallywix being the last one. Liberation of Undermine kind of gives us a vibe of Suramar type-ish. Undermine is probably under the tyrant fist of Gallywix and or of the Goblin cartels as well, or they might just be our new little factions that we have there. We don't know. We'll see how this will all play out. This is just fresh. We just had away from the WoW Direct and Warcraft Direct, and we're kind of getting our toes dipped into this. But it's a refreshing change of pace, being a kind of different vibe with the Undermine, with all of the tech, all of the bombs, all of the Goblin shenanigans. It's something that we haven't had probably since BFA, and we're gonna get to that in a second. And it's something that has been hinted at, kind of leaked and spoiled a while ago. This will also come with a new dungeon, which is the Operation Floodgate, and it's going to be immediately part of the Season 2 dungeon pool with Heroic, Mythic, and Mythic Plus, of course. And we don't know too much about the dungeon just yet. I assume we'll probably know more in the weeks to come, possibly after the PTR version of 11.1 will be released and put for player testing. What we know is that the Season 2 will of course bring the 4 other dungeons that we have in the War Within and 3 new legacy dungeons alongside this new Operation Floodgate, which normally on the 0.1 patches, if I'm not mistaken, there used to be like a mega dungeon, or at least in the 0.5 patches of the 0.1 patches used to be like a mega dungeon, but it's just gonna be a regular dungeon. And of course one of the kind of obvious dungeon that we're gonna have in the season pool will be Mother Lode as part of the all legacy dungeons, and we will have 2 more, which will likely kind of have to be tied into the Goblin theme. Now, I don't know what those 2 could be. They could be pretty much anything, or they could just be like random other stuff that might just make sense to be in a War Within expansion. Marcelian and I kind of predicted that the 11.1 patch will be more Arathi themed, considering that one of the biggest dungeons that we have left that we haven't actually explored enough was the Priority of the Sacred Flame, which is obviously not happening. But that means that the other 2 dungeons are likely just going to be just some random legacy dungeons. We will see in the coming weeks what they will entail. In terms of the new content as well, we're gonna have 2 new delves and a bunch of new variations to the existing delves. Variations probably refer to how you can sometimes start in different points of the delves and have different types of events throughout the delves. We'll likely just have more types of events throughout the delves. And since they mentioned that obviously we kind of dealt with Zekvir, the new kind of main delve antagonist is gonna be present and probably featured in these 2 new variations, giving delves even more variety, flexibility, replayability if you wanna go there, and of course new rewards and things like that. We don't know the full details just yet, but for delve lovers, this sounds pretty cool. Definitely more reasons to go into delves. And as we kind of expected, the whole system of delves will constantly and gradually be upgraded throughout the expansion into what it will probably be eventually in 11.3, I want to say. We haven't had a 0.3 patch in a very long time. 0.2.7. Who knows how long the War Within will continue. And if the system is successful, I expect it to be fully expanded upon in the next coming expansions. I guess that's still up for grabs. We don't know exactly what it is. But one of the most exciting things that has been announced that's giving us a lot of goosebumps is the new mounting system, which starts with a new trike car, little cool, funky, cartoony 1920s gangster little car for, you know, the theme of the goblins. What we know so far is that, from what we've seen and what Ian has said, is this is the skywriting of ground mounting. It's Need for Speed for actual ground mounts. Of course, this is just going to be this one mount. I assume they're gonna take all of the dragon riding and skywriting customizations put into it, where we can make our own little wacky racing trike that we're gonna use around the course. Ian has hinted at some of the mechanics of the system where we can opt to have more speed. Obviously, we're gonna be way faster than a regular ground mount. We're going to put more into grip, more into drifting, like who knows, like this, just the fact that we have a different way to engage with ground mounting. Obviously faster is like one of the first things you'd probably do, but grip and drifting sounds interesting because we had in the past drifting type mechanics when it comes to moving around the world. One good example comes to this with the Senarth boss in Vault of the Incarnates, where the spider boss puts ice on the floor, and when you move into a direction you start to build up momentum, and if you stop moving your character kind of still slides across the floor, right? That happens, and I assume that's probably going to play a little bit into what drifting is. I think we have something like this similar into Narrow Bar Palace, when you go after the first boss and you clear trash and the blobs or puddles of goo on the floor kind of make you like slide through them in a weird fashion way. I assume that's probably gonna go into the drifting technology, so we can assume that plays out into us moving alongside the roads of Undermine, and that's pretty cool. I don't know what that means. Do we just like, does it matter that we drift? Is it a thing? Will we have dragon races, but instead, you know, on the ground with the cars? That would be really cool. We don't know exactly if we're gonna have flying in Undermine. And if we don't have flying, this is the way you get people to be invested in travel and movement around the map, if you don't just introduce flying. And if they do that, I am all for it. I have been an advocate of ground mounting throughout the expansions. I feel like they immerse you a little bit more into the world. You get to actually see the terrain, see the elevations, the buildings, the mountains, the forests, and all of that, as opposed to just flying over it. Although I still probably assume that at one point they might enable flying so that you can just, you know, do your daily activities a little bit faster. But who knows? That has always been in the context of ground mounting being very slow. And not only will this not be slow, but it will also be very engaging and very fun from the looks of it. And not to tease you any longer, player housing has kind of been teased already. We will have player housing, although this is so early that we don't know exactly in what context the player housing will release, because at the end of the Warcraft Direct, the player housing was just followed by a World of Warcraft Midnight logo. So is this kind of hinted for Midnight, or is this going to be still released within the context of the War Within? And if we look at the roadmap, which is something that's very enticing to look at the moment for a couple of reasons, we don't see the player housing at all within the context of the War Within, and Midnight is still a little bit shrouded. There's new systems, new things, so we don't know specifics about Midnight. We can assume that Midnight is just around the corner, and we're likely going to be having more things revealed about Midnight in the summer, as per the roadmap. We can see right here that just between summer and autumn there's an expansion reveal, probably with more systems and everything that's coming. And as far as the roadmap goes, like I mentioned, it only goes as far as 11.2.7, which will release around autumn, around to the end of autumn. Now, what does this mean? Does that mean that we'll have an 11.3 in 2026 January, February type thing, or will that be the expansion released, or, you know, close to spring be the expansion release of Midnight? We don't know. It's a little bit of speculation, but this is what it looks like so far. But in terms of player housing, this has been something that's been requested by a lot of people. We've had hints of this ever since the garrisons were introduced in Warlords of Draenor, which is 8 years ago or something like that. Crazy. And adorning your house with trophies of Onyxia, with your tier sets, with your achievements and all of that, that just brings a whole new layer of customizations that we can use to tie in our own little house. But what's important is that where will your house be? Do you have options to choose different houses? Will we just have Stormwind and, let's say, Orgrimmar as capitals where we can get these houses, or do we have a couple of choices? Can we get more than one? How does it work? Do we have any way of using it to showcase to our friends? Will there, and if that's the case, we have to have some kind of utility tied to it, because if it's just cosmetic, not a lot of people might engage with it, because we had that for garrisons and people didn't really care about that, at least in the circles that I play with, until you had the garrison invasions and you can actually use the garrison for some kind of utility, then, or, you know, have it have a purpose for your friends and other people to get into your own home to figure out some things. Maybe we'll have portals there. Maybe we'll, you know, my house has a portal to Dalaran, yours has a portal to Hellfire Peninsula or whatever, right? And we use it to get there. There's a lot to unpack here. But this is just the gist of it from what we've seen so far. Plenty of Warcraft news. And if you want to get more juices of it, make sure you catch Marcelian and I tomorrow or today, depending on when you watch this video, as we go live with our WoW Wrap-Up show on our YouTube channel and on our Twitch. And you can see us discuss all of these options in detail. By that time, we might have more information that devs have probably clarified on Twitter or in blog posts or anything like that, and hopefully dive deeper into every little bit that has been announced. Hope you're excited for 11.1, because I want to drive my Need for Speed trike throughout Undermine right now.